okay, suddenly those fights seem that little bit sharper, and those heavy silences seem longer. And the person you love most may feel like a stranger. Now, for many couples in their 40s and 50s, it's not about falling out of love, it's a season of change, and that's called perimenopause. And that's a chemical change that affects women that can change how they feel and connect. So today I want you to understand what's happening, why even the strongest marriages can feel that sudden strain, and 5 tools you can easily use together to stay close. Now, here's the truth. At this stage, when problems seem to escalate, I find that most of my clients aren't in fact drifting apart. They're just walking into this season of life of perimenopause and menopause that no one has really prepared them for. And that can be both women and men. My wife's an expert in this field, and it seems to be the case that many women have no idea that they're in fact in perimenopause, and they receive advice from doctors that basically makes them feel like they're going crazy, and it doesn't help them to understand the sudden changes in their body chemistry, and that impacts both partners in the marriage. Now, when this happens, suddenly a woman might not feel like she's herself. She may feel like nothing he does helps her. And together they start living like co-managers of a house instead of teammates. The good news is that there are remedies to the problem, and I'm going to explore them here because there are very few relationship advisors who seem to deal with this inevitable issue in midlife marriages. It's going to happen. Perimenopause and menopause is a cycle of a woman's life that will occur inevitably, and you have to be ready for it. So if what I'm talking about sounds familiar, you're in the right place, and don't forget to hit. Now, if these type of problems seem familiar, you're in the right place, okay? Because today I'm going to explore in some depth how you can deal with the problem together. And it's be a big surprise for most men to understand exactly what seems to be going wrong. And so do hit subscribe, stay watching this video, and let's get into explaining what perimenopause is and how to recognize those changes. And this can show themselves as early as a woman in her 30s. It's quite shocking. Now, so what is perimenopause? Let's start at the beginning. It's the transition before menopause, which you're more likely to have heard of. And that means that hormones that once ran like a steady rhythm, they start to transition. Okay, they used to run and suddenly they don't, or they crash like waves. And they're very important because these chemicals control everything from mood to brain function, as well as body function. The hormones like estrogen, they used to stabilize mood and sleep, and that begins to fluctuate and diminish. The serotonin drops, and so anxiety and irritability is very near the surface. The hormone progesterone falls, and that's one that really is important for sleep. So suddenly a woman might find that her sleep just is like a thing of the past, and stress feels really so much heavier. And then finally, stress, that's caused by cortisol surges. That often rises, sometimes without warning. I read the other day that a neuroscientist described it like, think of your brain as going through a remodel. Things shift, and routines you used to rely on can feel very different for a while, and you're not going to be ready for it. So it's no wonder so many women feel like, I don't feel like myself. I don't have any patience anymore. I feel on edge all the time. I feel tired all the time. And no wonder so many male partners say, well, it feels like the rules have suddenly changed. I don't know how to help her. Everything I do seems to make it worse. And this is very important because they're not personality flaws on either side. It's basic biology. But how you respond to it as a couple, that's where the relationship can just fall apart or grow stronger. Now, just to say, mood swings sometimes can be severe. Now, if you're a lady watching this, and if you're a man who really cares about the lady in his life, if you notice those mood swings really feel overwhelming or even unsafe, or if depression and anxiety take over, do reach out to a doctor because it's biology and it is treatable. Okay, I'm not a doctor, but I'm someone who's helped clients and have been through this with my own wife. And on that point, let me give you a recent example of a couple I worked with. The husband was a startup founder and she was a physician, both in their 40s, and they came to me after 18 months of therapy. They still felt completely overwhelmed and not really knowing where the problems came from, because they identified any childhood triggers they had. They could articulate where their communication and love language, but they were just struggling to connect. And um, the wife, she couldn't really isolate why seemingly small issues or things that you might have forgotten to do at home turned into tense standoffs, and it becomes something of a battlefield. So during one session, she just confessed and said, "I just feel invisible. He doesn't notice. With everything changing, I feel like I'm holding everything together, but no one sees the weight of what I'm carrying." And his response to that is, he said, "I feel like I can't do anything right because the harder I try to support you, the more I feel like a failure." And the root of the problem was clear. There were sudden hormonal shifts of perimenopause. It impacted her mood, energy, sense of self, confidence, and the tiredness. And that in turn strained the relationship. And the mood swings and irritability were so sudden, he felt helpless and frustrated, not understanding what was causing the friction. Um, what I helped them do is to shift into having more insight into what the issues were, building some sort of structure and understanding of what was going on. And so, say in about 3 or 4 weeks of coaching, they worked together on learning about the causes and effects of perimenopause and how to deal with it, and to make sure that they checked in daily, at the very least weekly, to find out how she was feeling, because day to day the hormone fluctuations were just completely unpredictable. Okay, and they had calmer, more meaningful conversations, and they both looked into what they can do to help her. And by about the 5th to 6th week of consulting, they were working as a team and reconnecting. And she said that the forces of division in a relationship that were not us, they were a biological silent enemy that neither of them understood. So as you can see, that's not magic. There's not any particular formula. It's about really working together on the problem and understanding. And unfortunately, the information on perimenopause is very, very, say, uneven out there. My wife is something of an expert in that subject, and I'm going to refer to her later. And what needs to happen here is to find clarity on what is going on, plus clarity on what to practice and what tools to use to navigate that, the roller coaster that's going on in your life together. Okay, as a team. And there are 5 quick tools I'm going to talk about, which apply whether or not you're in perimenopause, but because of these particular problems, they are very important. And so the first tool is to basically have a connection reset. Okay, that's either sometimes daily if the symptoms are severe, to ask on a scale of 1 to 10, how are you feeling? It's very, very simple. Secondly, as a man, you can literally ask and say, is there something I did that made you feel closer? What can I do to help? Or am I doing something that makes you feel distant? Because the hormone changes can make a woman feel very isolated and very unseen. It's pretty severe in many cases. And thirdly, you can ask, well, what can we try this week? Okay, to build the connection and for you to feel supported. And one husband told me recently, this type of practice stops resentments building up. You can find a voice together on how to deal with these very important and very difficult medical problems. Okay. Secondly, is the empathy loop. Use the script. Okay, I'll read out very carefully. I felt emotion. I could be scared when the event. That could be suddenly your wife just falls asleep suddenly. Just literally just says, "I need to rest." Um, and just try and relay how that has landed with you and what you can do to help. Okay, it's not that she may feel like she's being lazy. I mean, my wife had that. She said, "I feel I'm being lazy," and I would say to her, "Well, sorry, hon, but there's something going on there." But I felt really, really stressed by it, and I was trying to work out how to deal with it, because it feels like it's an invisible enemy. Say, well, just ask, do you want me to listen? Is there something I do to help fix it? Or do you just want me to hear you out? Maybe you just need a cuddle and work through what can be a sudden, feeling of depression and despair. It gets very scary. I found it really stressful myself, and I'm pretty resilient, because you feel like you can't help the person you really love for the most of the entire world. So don't try and resist the impulse to make her feel instantly better, because you probably won't be able to do it. The chemicals are running away. They have the upper hand. But what you can do is avoid making her feel like you're closing her down. And it's better to let her vent out the feelings or cry it out or whatever she needs to do. It's not that she's mad at you, okay? She's very often, it's very frustrating. You can imagine suddenly, guys, you can't get out of bed in the morning and you suddenly just burst into tears. And so put the shoe on the other foot and see how you would like to be dealt with. I think that's probably the easiest way to put it. All right. Tool 3 is, I call this micro moments. Okay, very just one meaningful thing, and no distraction. Check in. Okay, if you're text people, then do it by text. Be sensitive, and just find out how the symptoms are progressing. All right, there are remedies to do it by diet, by hormone replacement. Uh, and I'm going to get my wife on this channel, I think, and then we're going to speak to her because I know it's going to be really helpful to you ladies out there and to you guys out there who really don't understand the emotional impact of menopause. There's not, I don't know of any real relationship coaches who actually deal with it right now. So I'm going to explore it more on this channel. If that appeals to you, let me know in the comments. If you're an expert in the field, then I'd love to hear your take on it. I'm not mansplaining. I'm trying to get an understanding between men and women of a very important shift in a relationship for which no one is prepared. So, hit subscribe. I'd love to see your comments. I'll read each and every one, I promise. Okay, let's go to tool number 5, and that's pause and revisit. If things are getting fraught, just, come out, say, I care too much. I'm feel I'm going to make this position worse. Let's just revisit it in 15 minutes and let's find a solution together. And I've had people say to me, that client just the other week, he said, that one line, it's just saved me from turning every fight into a war. And he's separated from his wife. And she's going through menopause. There are 2 relatively young children involved. And he's learned to negotiate the handover and the separation in a very, very different way in just about 3 to 4 weeks. So you remember that line? Okay, just revisit and try and find a solution together. I'm not against you. So why do these tools work and what makes me different in how I approach it? Well, you know a little bit about me on the channel. You know that I'm a dad of 7 and I've been married for 3 decades. And we've gone through, all sorts of, financial issues and relocations and other stresses and parenting children from 3 different decades, 20s, teens, and the 1s to 10s. So I would probably describe my approach as being more grounded. The tools I describe work because they are very easy to implement and very simple. Okay. It can be very painful as a husband to feel like you can't help your wife in the moment. And a lot of the advice out there can be a bit one-dimensional, saying, well, it's a communication problem. Men are wired differently. They're from Mars, women are from Venus. Just accept you'll never understand each other. But no, don't accept that. Relationships aren't 2 planets orbiting separately. They're dynamic. They change, living, moving, and breathing. And perimenopause is one example of how things can dynamically shift when you're not ready. The approach I have to this is holistic. Those tools are not just about communication styles. It's how couples can handle unforeseen things that hit every long-term relationship. That can be a job loss, a child in crisis, and in this case, a sudden biological shift, an enemy that neither of you asked to meet. Right? Perimenopause is one of those curveballs. In the same way that layoff from jobs, burnout, or caring for aging parents, it's a thing. But what is absolutely the case here is that perimenopause will happen. And so what I've been teaching in this video is how to build habits and rhythms that help you to face the unexpected together. So the stress actually brings you together. They're not just about hormones in this instance. They're about handling this shock without losing the bond. And with perimenopause, okay, there are 3 major things you're going to be contending with. Let me just reiterate this. First, hormones do create mood swings, sleep disruption, irritability. And the tools that I spoke about acknowledge the biology while giving couples ways to compensate. All right, rebuild the connection in little pieces when her energy is low and you're feeling stressed because you can't help her. Secondly, many women feel like I'm not myself. And as a man, you feel helpless. And the empathy loop bridges that gap. Okay, it keeps the frustration from sounding like criticism, and you don't feel you need to withdraw or feel abandoned by her. Okay. Thirdly, these little steps are for hardworking people like you and me. Okay, we don't have hours to process things. So there's little resets, micro moments, Sunday check-ins, respect how much bandwidth and capacity you have. And finally, and probably most importantly, they create psychological safety because hormones amplify reactions. So if you pause and revisit in a stressful situation, it will stop escalation. And finally, if she feels invisible, the connection reset guarantees attention. Okay, I feel this approach, and I know this approach works because it's not just about why you feel disconnected, it's about reconnection and designing a marriage that can absorb stress, whether that's financial, emotional, or in this case, hormonal, instead of breaking under it. If it feels like exactly what you need right now, grab the 6-day reset in the description. It'll walk you through this process step by step. So I feel hopeful for you because couples have told me once they start practicing these tools in this position, um, a woman doesn't feel like she's a problem to fix, but a partner, and she feels seen again. Okay. And, because the hormonal shift sometimes makes them feel invisible and alone. Okay. And for husbands, this gives them a roadmap. It's not theory, it's about someone to literally walk beside you while you figure it out with her. Okay. Even when everything can change. Perimenopause doesn't have to be a breaking point, it could be a turning point. Okay. You don't need any more theory, you need clarity and tools, and you need action. So again, grab the marriage reset. If you want to deep dive into this, book of clarity call with me. It's free, and we'll map out where you're stuck and your best move. And I would love to hear from you. I'd love to geek out on the science here. So if you're an expert in women's health or menopause care, drop your thoughts in the comments. How do you advise women to deal with the emotional issues that are caused by emotional changes? And give men some help. How can we best help, in your expert opinion? And if you're in this yourself, what's been the hardest part or the most surprising? And lastly, a shameless plug for my wife, Louise Mackenzie's channel. She's doing phenomenal work on women's health and menopause. And I've been privileged to go through this with her. And she's determined to help as many women as she can. She's an absolute sweetie. Love her to bits. So until next time, keep leading, keep loving. I'd love to hear from you. And if you'd love to see my lovely wife on this channel, let me know. And let us know what your problems are. She's there to help you, I promise. I'll see you in the next video, and know that I'm there with you.